Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going weekly games podcast on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube. It has been a week. I don't know about
Are
you
you
guys,
sure?
but it's been that kind of a month. I don't know
Oh,
about you guys, but I feel like I've been hogtied and beaten about the head and shoulders with blunt instruments. It is a week after E3. It's the first time in 2 years that we had a full-on week of the barrage and deluge of gaming news and announcements, and it wore us out. So we're back this week to just let our hair down, so to speak, and talk about the games that we've been playing.
some of us.
Here with me, backing me up, are my co-hosts. First of all, we'll start off with Towmaster99. How you doing, Tow?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well tonight. Ready.
And in the second chair is DBQ Hams. How you doing, DBQ?
Well, I'm just glad that Tao combed his hair, so that is excellent. Ready to let it all hang out. So,
I combed it back. That's why I can't see it right now.
oh, is that how? Wow, really far
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, really far back.
Congratulations, that's successful. No, I'm glad to be here. Yeah, it's definitely been a sprint through the last week or so, and kind of coming out and realizing like, oh, I don't need to be checking threads nearly as much as I was over the last week, just in terms of new announcements and game drops, in terms of demos and news. But we're still getting it trickling, right? We had some Madden franchise updates this week with the last week or so. So there's still been a slow drip, but not nearly the sprint that we enjoyed or endured over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. So if you're unfamiliar with the show, if you're here joining us for the first time, our shtick is we do a bi-weekly drum beat back and forth. We do 1 week where we do a deep dive on the news around the gaming industry, and the other week we do a discussion about all the games that we've been playing over the past 2 nights, or fortnight, as our other co-host, Swissguard, who's not here with us tonight, is off to say about all the games that we've been playing. So tonight we're doing the GX show. This is GX show part 2 for June 2021. At the top of the order, we're going to start off with a discussion of the new releases that we have been playing. Tao, I'm going to let you go ahead and start this section off. What have you been dipping your feet into as of late? That is of the newish variety.
Yeah, so I finally got to play Knockout City. This is a EA Originals game. It's a dodgeball battle 3. Well, right now it's 3-on-3. They kind of change out the modes though within the game. I'm assuming every week. This is only like the second-ish week that I'm playing it. So when I was playing it last week a little bit, and even over the weekend, they had like a 4-on-4 match. But now they had 4-on-4, and then they had like kind of free for all, every man for himself death match, and then there was a some other like special match. Oh, it was like the kind of kill confirmed in Call of Duty, where you kill somebody and they drop the dollar tags. And this game, I think it's like coins. I didn't get a chance to play it, but you got to pick up the coins, and you win that way. But however many points it is, I didn't get to try it, so I'm not sure what the points were. But I was just doing the 4-on-4 and then 3-on-3 this week, this time around, and I really like it. It's like I said, it's a dodgeball game, so you just they have just obviously just the regular dodgeballs that you can throw, but then at each match they have one special type of ball that you can play. So they have like a sniper ball, which looks like a football. So when you kind of power it all the way up and throw it, it like just zooms. Like if you can catch that one, then you're pretty good because it's fast. When you finally get that full charge one, they have like multi balls. They have like a cage balls. They have all these different kind of balls, so it's just kind of cool. But at first, like this came out, I was gonna look it up.
Mid-May.
Mid-May. Okay, thank you. I'm glad you looked it up. And I was like, I don't know if I want to try this or pick it up. It's free to start, I guess. I'm not sure how that actually works, because as I was playing, I think just within the last couple of days, I started getting prompts for, hey, here's the $14.99 version and the $39 version, or $30 version, the deluxe version. And I was like,
Yeah, I think they have it where you can play up to a certain level, character
Yeah, so
level.
I'm assuming, does it just stop? Then you can't play anymore, or do you just stop getting like the unlocks? Do you know? You're not sure? Okay, yeah. I'll find that out, I guess. That's probably this week. Because I'm pretty high up there right now. I think I just got up to like 22 or 3, I think. So we'll see what happens when I hit
I
25.
think I remember reading that it either capped at 20 or 25. So if you're at 22, 23, I'll be curious to see what happens at 25.
Yeah, I don't know if it just stops unlocking or if you can't play at all. So it didn't really say like on that screen, and I haven't. I'm probably gonna buy it, at least like the $20 version, the cheaper version, standard version.
But as we start talking through and trying to figure out, eke out of your discussion, the price to value to play, right, ratio and value, how much gameplay did you? Because you only recently started playing Knockdown, and you've already torn through the levels that are available. And you're playing at the free tier.
Yeah, yeah. There's, as far as I can tell, there's not like a battle pass. I don't think. Like I was just unlocking stuff. Like I didn't buy anything. You could pay for stuff, like outfits and stuff. But as far as like I think they call it street rank or something. That's which is their battle pass or
Yeah, they
their
didn't have like a full on $10 battle pass.
yeah.
I
So I'm not
think.
sure. Yeah, I'm not sure after you buy it, like, do you just unlock forever or do you have to keep buying it like with your seasons? I'm not sure how that even works yet. Um, but I mean, if I could just keep playing it, like even if I cap at 25 and like I just stop unlocking stuff, I'll probably play it for a little while that way. But if it just straight like cuts me off and I can't play the game at all, then I'll pay the $20 or I think it's 15 for the standard version.
Well, what it sounds like it might be like is like the most recent Trackmania model. If you guys remember me talking through that, I think last year, where you basically there's buckets of content, and so whenever you pay for a bucket of content, you have access rights to that content forever. And so there's a package that you could buy, and I think you can. I think it's the same thing. You could start playing Trackmania for free. Then there was an initial, the release package that you could buy of like the first year's content, and you could play that content forever. And then they incrementally add on to that content, and as you grab that content, which is new tracks and new cars, new skins, etc., you have access to that. So at any point you can stop, and just that's your collection. It feels kind of like it's card packs for Magic or whatever. I don't know because I'm not a card guy. This is just what I hear, what I think people have said, which is that you buy a thing, you get a card deck, and then you obviously, because they're physical, have those cards forever. But they're gonna make new stuff, and if you want to keep up and run with the cool kid sneakers on, then it's like you bought a pair of Zips when you were a kid. You had access to those Zips forever. But when the new Zips came out, right, you wanted the new pair, so you bought the new license. So I don't know.
Well, and this model it changed a little bit upon release as well. So when they launched it on 21st, 20th or so of May, it was a 2-week window where it was free on every platform. And then after that 2-week window, they were going to charge. And as I got closer to that 2-week platform or the 2-week window, then they said, we're going to cap it at 25. And it is a level capped trial is how they're describing it at this point. But then you would buy the game at $20. And right now it's, as you were saying, Tao, it's 25% off. So for $15, and you have access to all the existing, kind of what you're describing, game logic in terms of everything that's there right now. It doesn't, they haven't committed to extra maps and skins and game passes or battle passes down the future. But right now that $15 on sale gets you everything that's available.
Okay. And I wonder if you just unlock it then as you play, most likely, just like when you first start the game, more than likely.
So I'm going to challenge
even after buying it.
I'm going to challenge you on one thing, Tabmaster. You mentioned earlier to DBQ, you thanked him for having looked something up. I'm going to challenge that notion and contend that DBQ just knew that off the top of his head, a resident historian and librarian. So I'm going to come back to you, DBQ, and ask, this is EA, is that correct?
Yeah.
So this is EA. So EA was were they the publisher for the Rocket thing last year that failed?
Yes, so they were the publisher. Different developers.
Yeah. So is this the employment of a strategy in a different vector that is the result of lessons learned from last year's failure?
I sure hope so, right? I mean, I would think that that is like the way that this rolled out, that they were out there in the beginning describing Knockout City as, let's put it out there for as many people as possible because it only is multiplayer matches. This was hopefully them learning their lesson from really the rough launch that Rocket Arena had to endure. Going from a $30 game down to a $10 game 7 days after launch, down to a Game Pass game within 2 weeks. So, yeah, I think that this is them learning that lesson, putting a lot out there, trying to engage people longer, and also in some ways having a smaller price tag attached to it. Like, there is something to say about the difference between a $20 and $30 commitment. Like, yeah, okay. Tao's ready to throw down $15 just because he's enjoyed his first, 25 levels. So that's great. That's a good sign about the gameplay.
So, Tao, did you play Rocket Arena last year?
No, I never tried that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the whole time that this thing has been out, I've been like, isn't this just Rocket Arena where they're firing balls instead of
Another
missiles?
fireball. They just reskinned it. Yeah, no, I never tried that one, so I can't speak on Rocket Arena. You played it, DB, didn't you? Rocket Arena
Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit for the
was
first month or so until
was
the servers kind of really slowed down.
was that just like a versus game then, or was it more battle royal?
No, it was a versus,
It was
or it
versus
had
teams.
like 3 on bots. Like you could do a wave based as well. And so, but yeah, it was usually 3 on 3. Characters all had more or less the same abilities. You had a dash and a, kind of a hover, but you had different weapons. And so that made a little bit of a difference in terms of how they shot. And they had some special abilities based on their, somebody could fly or kind of swim underneath the level, so or a big sniper shot. So they had a little bit of that kind of Overwatch character shooter flavor to it, but in a balance that kind of in a fast-paced kind of Quake Arena type of game.
So, Tao, until you get called up by the big leagues, until you get called up to the show, you are a resident e-computer playing in the minor leagues, playing double A ball. How does this compare to the field, to the panoply of competitive games that you play?
This is actually it's kind of up there. I get really into this game when I'm playing it. I've only played with randoms so far, unfortunately. So I think if we like, and I mentioned this in the chat, this would be a good game for us to all play. Well, assuming that we can get all of us on if they have the 4-on-4 back, but or at least some of us. But yeah, it's a pretty good game. It sounds actually as DB was describing Rocket Arena. It kind of sounds like that, but it's even a little bit less. Like they don't have like the special abilities for the players and stuff. Like I said, they just have like the regular ball and then the special balls, and that's pretty much it. Everybody has a dash, a couple of jumps that they can do. There's a glider that you can use. Pretty much, you can use that anytime you want. Kind of going around the arenas. The arenas are like small to medium size. There's no like super huge arenas that I've seen so far. I think I've seen like 4 or 5 so far, which is actually a pretty good number. And there's kind of on some arenas there's different like hazards, like you're in the train station on one, so there's trains going by. There's like a construction site with like this big wrecking ball that's just going back and forth on part of the screen or part of the arena. So you have that kind of going for you too. I don't know if they had any kind of environmental stuff in Rocket Arena or not, but yeah,
A
it's
little
just
bit, but this is very
yeah,
much there's a lot more environmental stuff going on here
yeah.
because
There's like
I've
a
played this during a little bit of the beta period and at launch as well.
Yeah, like a little high or like a street where there's cars going by and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I really I'm really having a lot of fun with this game. Something a little bit different. It's third person, which I'm not always excited about because I have it's kind of hard for me to like hit people in the third person. But this is more like once you like hold down the button to throw, like you kind of charge your shot, it actually locks on to people, so that's kind of nice. And then obviously you can catch balls when they're coming towards you. So, there's that give and take there. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. I like the kind of like, I don't know, it'd be like kind of 50s, 60s ish aesthetic to it, like the announcer and everything, and just kind of the way the players look. I just I'm having a lot of fun with it so far. So um, one
Yeah.
negative.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say one negative that I really don't like though is like if you do get knocked out by one of the environmental, like if you fall off the map, which you can do on some levels, or if you get hit by like the train and stuff, it knocks you out. But that actually gives that point to the other team, which I don't know about that. I think that's a little bit. I don't know. I just seem that's a little bit strange to give a point to somebody that they didn't do anything. Like sure if they hit me and I bounce off of it, sure. But if I just like I'm an idiot and like fall off the map because I'm not paying attention, or I get hit by the train because I'm not paying attention, I don't know if the other team should be getting a point like that. But other than that, I mean it's pretty smooth. The gameplay is pretty smooth and catching mechanic is there. Sometimes
And
I
you're
think
playing on both Switch and Xbox? Are you noticing
yes.
a difference there?
No, not really. That was one thing I wanted to mention is like even the graphics look like really good on the Switch, almost on par. Obviously, it's not gonna be quite on par, but I think it's because of that cartoony graphics that they're using. So it looks pretty good even in. I played both in handheld and docked, and it looks great on the Switch. So, yeah, I'm gonna keep going with it. Like I said, most likely I'll buy the at least the $15, $20 one once I hit that cap.
So, Kyle, I keep trying to let you get off the mic, but you keep coming up with things I want to challenge you on.
That's right.
So, we've talked in fairly recent history, and I'm asking this question because this is on my plate too. And we've talked about the number of subscriptions you have and managing that time. Is there any concern about plunking down for I'll call it the content pack for this type of game, given because we're going to talk a little bit about competitive, games more tonight. Given that, it's one thing to be a good Fortnite player and to be a good Call of Duty player and to be a good Apex player, and that cred that goes along with that. Being a good, I even have to look back at the name. Being a good Knockout City player, how much does that really buy you?
It's gonna depend on how this plays out as far as like if there is an actual battle pass or like you were saying with the other comparison, if it's just like you buy stuff and then you can just unlock it as it goes. Because even like with Call of Duty and Apex, I just totally dropped those. I did it that one time, and I'm not gonna probably do it again. Getting all those battle passes like that. Um, with Rocket League and Fortnite, those ones I don't have to pay anything because I've been doing it so long. So I just save up the V bucks and the Rocket League bucks or whatever they're called, Rocket coins, and I just buy the battle pass. And lately it's been fairly easy to move up in those battle passes, so I can actually drop off those games for a while. At least like when they first come out, I'm playing them for like those first 2-3 weeks, and then I can just drop off a little bit. Especially in the latest battle pass for Fortnite, they were doing it a little bit different. I don't want to go into it too much right now, but so it seems a little bit easier to unlock stuff. You can kind of unlock stuff as you go on your own pace. So that makes it kind of easier for that. And even Rocket League, I'm not trying to brag, but I'm well over 100, level 100 already, and it's I think only been a month since their season came out, their new season. So I'm pretty much at 100. It keeps going. Like I think I mentioned this before. Like I don't know like if there's even an end to that Rocket League pass is what they call it. It just seems to kind of keep going forever, and you get the same like I don't know, say 5 to 10 things, and they just kind of repeat, but then you get like a different color or something. Something's a little bit different on it. So so in this at least for right now, yeah, I can kind of keep up with those ones, and then possibly throw on another one. Like I said, I don't know, depending on how this one kind of plays out, I'll see if I'll keep to this one too, or if you have to buy something like every I don't know 3 months, or it seems to be every quarter for all the other ones. Probably not. I probably won't do it that way. Maybe just every once in a while I'll plunk down to buy the knockout pass or whatever they call it, if they even do that. And I got a feeling that they're probably going to do that if this becomes popular, if it is popular. I don't know how well it's been doing. I seem to get into games pretty quickly, so it's pretty healthy community so far. So we'll have to see how it just plays out in the long run.
So I think I want to say I'm hypothesizing that there's a direct correlation between what you're seeing that's leading to your uptake and the economic model that's playing out and that companies are employing with regards to the game and the length of time on the market. And I'm going to throw this hypothesis out in DBEQ. I'm hoping you can help us observe this over the next few months. But I think what we're seeing is that Fortnite and Rocket League, which are games that have been out for a lengthy amount of time, have a gamer base that isn't so much up for paying for battle passes that have a high frequency of turnover. Call of Duty's season passes, Great Scott, are down to like 5 or 6 weeks. And then the content rolls, and then you re-up for another battle pass. Now, I get it. Highly popular game, tons of people playing it, generates an incredible amount of revenue. And I think that there are games that are kind of in between, like maybe Apex. So I think one of the things we're seeing is that people are playing with that, how frequently they turn over the battle pass has to do with how much are they projecting their customer base is kind of up for that behavior. And so the longer a game is on the market, you may see the seasons lengthening and not as frequent turnover because you don't have a customer base that's really willing to rapidly turn that around as much. So we have given a ton of healthy talk to the competitive market space. DBQ, you've been playing something that almost caught my eye very recently. It did make it though, but I do want to hear about Game Builder Garage on the Switch. Is Switch the only platform it's on, or is it also on PC?
Yeah, it's Nintendo published.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's Nintendo published, and it feels very much like it, because if it caught your eye but you didn't go for it, you probably made the right choice, at least at this point. And I think it is very much a Nintendo game because it's going to hold your hand for a long period of time. And I'm finding I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it if I think about it like a instruction session, not a game, not even a game builder game. This is somebody's going to walk me through a tutorial, and instead of videos, I'm needing to push the A button to advance the dialog box to keep the video going in my programming, self-taught lesson here. But it is okay. I'll frame this as I'm a parent who bought one of my son's WarioWare DIY back in the DS days, where you were doing simple programming. You were doing a lot of if-thens and stringing things together and creating little micro games. And even, you could even design music for that game or scribble out some graphics on the DS touchscreen. So I appreciate when a game company is trying to use games as a platform to teach something. And so in that case, like if my kids were younger again, if they were in elementary school, I thought about buying this for my nephew. This feels like it's right in line with kind of an elementary school. Here, let's step you through stuff. Let's play around with some things. It is much more, I don't know if rote's the right way, but it is very granular compared to something like Sony's Dreams and Media Molecule. There we go. And what they do with giving you this big set of tools, allowing you to kind of plunk and play a little bit more, but also turning you loose a lot faster. So Game Builder Garage starts you off and you have to do some lessons. You can't go in to play what other people have done until you get through a lesson or two. And which I get, but it in some ways that may not be what everybody wants it for, right? Like there's probably going to be a whole lot out there, whether or not it's going to be discoverable because Nintendo hasn't put in a really good search or any type of metadata along with it to be able to flag or tag or discover things. Right now there's third-party sites out there. This is similar to what was going on with the original Mario Maker. Mario Maker 2 got a little better with that, but they've kind of backslid on this. And so in the introductions, in the first kind of different games that you build, you're doing some simple You build a tag game where you're only just running into it. So you don't even have to have another kind of prompt action as you're running into another player. You're using some of the motion controls, you're doing some driving, you're doing a little bit of a space shooter where you're basically tapping the button to go up and down and shooting. So very simplistic, but it's demonstrating a lot of different types of things that you then have the ability to kind of string together and interweave to create something. And that's the promise of the game, I think. And that's where I find myself even being frustrated of just wanting to go out and explore and play some goofy stuff. I feel committed to working through all the different lessons, at least in the initial lessons, just to see how they frame it, coming at it from an educational piece, just to see how this is done. And if it's done in such a way, Tao, did you guys have Labo at your house? Did you do any of that? I think Swiss ended up with a robot maybe at one point. But this is,
yeah, I never got into like the DIY part of it though.
The programming piece. And this feels very much like the user interface in this feels very much in that where you've got blocks and characters and you're kind of dragging your finger across to connect the logic lines. So it fits in that kind of leftover aspect of what Labo was. So
are you swimming back? Are you being apologist? It's because I'm trying to gauge. We started off with a certain amount of it's not like negative perspective because the game gated your progress, and now I wonder. It seems like you're saying, but the effect that is having sounds like what the developer was trying to drive you towards.
So I think the best way for me to describe it is I've stopped trying to think of it as a game. And if I think about it as a piece of educational software, I'm more committed. I'm more willing to go at its pace, where if this is a game where I can both play and create, I'm very frustrated. But so once I kind of turned that corner in my mind in terms of what this is as a software piece, I'm more willing to kind of, give it a little more leeway.
So it sounds like when I was a kid on the Magnavox Odyssey 2, there was a game. I cannot remember what the name of it was. I call it a game. It was a cartridge. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was essentially a thing that taught you how to program in assembly language. So, but I want to say Magnavox like clearly branded it as not a game. There was like a series of like that card and one other one that were branded as like e-learning something or something like that, but it kept it away from being a game. So I hear what you're saying. I'm sure when I think about it more thoroughly, I'll agree with you. But because I already went down this lane, I'm still going to say three things about tutorials. Because this is the thing that you open up with, right? This is a Nintendo thing. This is a JRPG thing. This is something that developers need to get over. Like, it is not your job to hold the player's hand. They've paid for a license to the software, and you need to allow them... Look, and this is said having had the recent experience of someone, my family paying to have me taught how to make cupcakes, and we all agreed, right, look, lovely person, really enjoyed it, but I'm a faster learner than the instructor was teaching at, right? Like, I can learn how to make cupcakes. Not my core competency, however, right? I can learn how to make cupcakes at a faster pace. So three things. Developers, like all tutorials that are implemented in games, should allow you to skip. Like, just flat out, right? Should allow you to skip.
It should be a menu option. Like, you should be able to create, play, or tutorial, right? Like, let yourself kind of self-diagnose what your level of comfort is.
Right. And I say tutorial, but anything that's in an introductory level, even when it's presenting you story and not so much teaching you, right? I fell off of Monster Hunter Rise because of this, because it was different, and I was encouraged to think it was different than Monster Hunter World, but at the end of the day, it was gating my process at a tedious, sleep-inducing pace right, before it allowed me to get into the gameplay. So there must be an ability for you to skip. There must be an ability therefore for you to loop back, right, at any point. You should be able to get back to that tutorial. I don't care if you are 10 levels into the game, you should be able to go back to the original tutorial and play anything that you feel at that point that you have missed. And then the third thing I'll say is also just a cascading flow down. Because you should be able to loop back, all tutorials should also be modular. There should not be this just one monolithic tutorial that has a start and an ending, and if you loop back into it, you have to play the entire stinking thing, right? All tutorials should be modularized by topic so that you can get back to a point topic for any single thing that you need to revisit, right? Because what happens is then if the tutorial's implemented and you have part of your player base that doesn't, a large part of your player base that never plays it, what we then spend time doing is further getting angry at the game, because then what that forces us to do is we have to go Google and find people, right, who write that stuff. And that's great that there's a grassroots community who does that kind of a thing, but I hate doing that, right? Going back to Swiss's comment of a couple of weeks ago, like everything that I experience should be packaged in the game. I shouldn't be forced to go out into Google to find it. So that's my rant. Sorry. Go ahead, DBQ.
No, I mean, I think that is actually really appropriate for this because the tutorials do a good job of breaking down those concepts. The lack of having chapters in there or the ability to kind of jump in and out and I guess I shouldn't say like, I don't know. I haven't finished all the tutorial games, so maybe I have the ability to go back in, but my assumption is based on the way that they're designed is that if I go back in, I'm going to redo the whole thing. I'm not just going to jump to give me the demo of the concept. But what they do have, and I will give Nintendo credit for this, is that in the tutorials, in the lessons, you also have basically an assessment. You have they call it a checkpoint, but it's going to cut out all the narrative aspect and just give you the question and allow you to try to solve it. Here's what you want to try to do. How do you do it? Can you demonstrate that? So there's an ability to go back in right to that skill and redo it. Granted, you don't get the instruction, so you have to kind of maybe guess a little bit more, but there is the ability to kind of jump to the chapter review more or less.
Yeah, I feel like this is further reinforcing to my point because it concatenates with another thing that is so arduously painful that I connote these things all being in the same space is annual training, right? I've been taking the same annual training for the better part of 3 decades. It ain't changing. By the way, a lot of it's common sense. Be a good human being and don't treat people like trash. I don't need to be instructed by video for 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes for the same message. And so often, if given the option, I hit the button that takes me straight to the test, and I just try and pass it, right? Because if I can pass the test, then that proves to me that I don't need the training. So, again, right, should be modular, should loop back, should allow you to skip.
You know what had a good tutorial that you could skip? Knockout City. And I'll have to say, I skipped the tutorials, and that was a mistake. I should have gone back and done those first. I'll just say that right now.
Yeah, the timing and Knockout City very much there's a lot of timing game in there in terms of catching it, releasing, things like that.
Yeah, it's little trick plays you can do and stuff. So yeah, I
didn't
realize that until later.
And a lot of that is life, right? That's going to happen. And this is like excuse me for waxing philosophical, but I often, I may be wrong, but I often say to people, you probably need to get your bachelor's degree and then go work, right? And see what the job is actually like before you race straight to your master's degree, continuing to get more education compiled on top of a lot of things that you don't understand the reality of, right? Or these things that, there are lots of professional training systems that are like, hey, we want you to go to the field and learn the job and be exposed to a certain extent as an apprentice, and then we want you to go to school. Because when you go to school without the practical knowledge of what's actually important, you're just absorbing a lot of stuff that you're never going to use, and you don't understand, right, the things that are being taught to you that are actually going to be important that you're going to use every day. So Yeah, I mean, I love games that have, something like you just mentioned, Tal, that like let you experience the game a little bit, so you can say, oh, that's actually important. Like I'm actually going to do that a lot, so I really need to pay attention to that tutorial.
So this is what G would call just-in-time instruction, right? Like this is where he built the what do video games have to teach us about learning, his whole kind of book and lecture series around this in the mid 2000s is very much about just-in-time instruction in terms rather than kind of the information dump, the traditional kind of, you know, front of the classroom, give me all the information and then test me on it. That's the experiential piece of it.
Yeah, and I like those game design patterns too, where like you go into the game, you play a little, you play 30 minutes, then you get to a point where it instructs you on that piece, right? It doesn't give you all that stuff up front. And I also like the micro trainings, right? The things that say, "Hey, do this," right? And then just tell me to do it once, and then but don't trap me in this time stasis thing, and then ask me to do it like 10 times, right? Like, so good discussion about training tutorials, competitive esports.
Yeah, there's a lot more conversation about Game Builder Garage than I expected.
Hey, Game Builder Garage, everybody.
Right.
It's a fine
let me
piece
ask,
of software.
Can I just ask one question? So that initial, like you said, they had to do like a level or two, or like one or two, the training things. Like how long were those that you had to spend time with? Like 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes? Like,
So the first one's maybe, I mean, it really depends on how quickly you want to read through it. You know,
is it just text then, or is it?
no, there's text. I mean,
They
in
kind of
true
show you
Nintendo
stuff.
fashion, you need to click through each sentence of the text in order for it to keep on going. So, right, I mean that is that the first full one, they give you a time frame. They give you time frames on them. So like the first full one is 40 minutes. I kind of sped through it, probably 25 to 30 minutes. So it depends on how quickly you're going to read it, depends on how quickly you feel like you've grasped the concept and connect it, or if you're going to practice it a little bit more. And so, yeah, I mean, it's surprisingly lengthy. I mean, it's an investment of time.
So DBQ, you want to run through your?
Yes, I do. I want to talk about things that are not an investment of time.
Okay.
My E3 demos that I've been playing. I didn't get to nearly as many of these as I wanted. I downloaded a bunch. Last year during E3 when they did this, you could continue to play the demos even after the window. This year, that's not the case. Like when I launched them back up last night, it says Game Fest is over. Follow us on social media to find out more updates. And I will say, I get why they did that in terms of, to package it around E3. One of the things that I enjoyed about last year's demos is some of these games, I played last summer, they didn't come out until January. Some of them that I played last summer still aren't out. And the benefit of having a demo that's still accessible is it reminds me of how much I enjoyed that game. It keeps it a little fresh in my mind. There were probably 3 or 4 games that I purchased over the last year that came out of that demo, out of E3 last year. And some of them, like Unspottable, which I talked about on our superlative show, was a demo that my family continued to play all year round. I mean, so having it windowed like this, I'm trying to figure out how I don't lose track of some of these. So with that said, I played a couple of Zelda likes, Arietta Spirits, which if I could reduce it down, it feels like Zelda Link to the Past, or that kind of top-down style, but in a modern setting. You're a family, a daughter, 2 parents visiting a cabin of their deceased grandmother, and it is kind of, if Zelda was set in kind of a modern country setting, right? It's real life aspect of it. It works. It's pretty nice kind of art style, somewhere in like a high res 16-bit, but not nearly very pixelated. So a lot of smooth edges. It makes it a very pretty game. I'm going to keep my eye on it because it looks fun. Beautiful music. Another one in that kind of Link to the Past. So Witch Trigger, let's just say Link to the Past as a twin stick shooter. So what if you were that's basically it. Like you are in going through some puzzles. It has 2-player co-op, which actually was pretty fun. Played it with my family, and it's a little overly pixelated at times in terms of some of the monsters as they explode, but more or less it can be reduced down to Zelda as a twin stick shooter. Interesting. I don't know that the art style compared to the the gloss of Aaaaaaand Spirits, Witch Trigger feels a little more washed out, a little more pastel in it as well. And third, my Zelda like is Tunic, which is coming out on Xbox PC. Is a little washed out, but beautiful. What a beautiful game. And challenging. There's been some conversations of the level of difficulty in this cross section. I found that out as I went the wrong way and ran into a giant boss that then proceeded to chase me across the map. But I played some of it, and I know that I'm going to come back to it. It's a beautiful game, really enjoyable, good music, and it's coming out on Game Pass. So,
and we use the label Zelda-like on these, which at a certain point as the timeline progresses, that is going to become, I don't know what that is, because, when we talk about Zelda-like, rearward looking, that means a thing. When we talk about a Zelda-like, when we start the line at Breath of the Wild and move forward, then that's a different thing. Or even back to what was the Wii U version again? Twilight?
Skyward Sword. No, the Wii version would have been Twilight Princess, okay. Skyward Sword. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yes, I would put this in the 16-bit Zelda-like, top overhead kind of exploration.
Okay, gotcha.
Tunic's a little more kind of 45-degree angle, a little more isometric. But again, similar type of style. So yes, that's where I did that. I played 2 updated demos. Echo Generation, which is coming out on Xbox, had a demo before last fall. It is Mario. It's Paper Mario kind of combat in terms of turn-based with a little bit of a button press in terms of the timing. But it's in this kind of like, I don't know, voxel Lego aspect where all the characters are built with small little bricks. And it works. It's got a neat style. You're running around a neighborhood. Again, another game that is coming out on Game Pass, and I know that as it launches, I've played enough to sell me on it. A game that I'm not sure that I've played enough to sell me on it, even though I had the demo last year, is Mayhem Brawler. So this is a classic kind of side, belt scrolling brawler in terms of it's got an updated demo which has much more. It's got a lot more visual flair to it. The presentation, there's some story. It's got some comic book aspect to it. It works pretty well. It doesn't feel as fluid as Streets of Rage 4. It's a little more Final Fight like in its stiffness, but maybe that's what they're also going for. And so I'll be curious to see what this ends up being. It's something where I might look to pick it up on a sale down the road if it doesn't land on Game Pass. So a couple other Game Pass games, I believe. Well, I know Sable is coming to Game Pass. So going back to Zelda-like, Sable to me feels like Breath of the Wild crossed with, I got a lot of Shadow Colossus vibes out of it in terms of the isolation. The art style is beautiful. The sound is beautiful. Sound design. Really kind of haunting, isolated world. A lot of exploration. Again, coming to Game Pass, definitely know that I'm going to want to play it. 2 games that I'm not so sure of. A Juggler's Tale, which is a really beautiful art style. You're almost like a marionette as you're going through kind of a puzzle platformer, and beautiful art style. Not so sold on kind of the puzzle aspects, as I got stuck and needed to look up things in order to kind of get out of the second kind of serious puzzle within the game. Death Trash. Death Trash it's like a pixelated kind of Hotline Miami-esque style of graphic style, but played over like Wasteland or early Fallouts in this kind of CRPG aspect. You're building your character like a CRPG in terms of range, melee, health, charisma, stealth, and you're kind of going through this post-apocalyptic world where the machines have taken over and most of the humans that have been banished out to the desert. And I, I don't have a long history with CRPGs, but I found the writing kind of interesting and a lot more variety in terms of some choice here. So that choice was again something that I've now flagged on my list to come back to. So one more game that doesn't have a lot of choice and I have not flagged to come back to is just such an oddity that I had to try it. So Death Trap Dungeon Golden Room. Let's say you wanted to make Dragon's Lair as a full motion video game. There you go. So this is a full motion video game. It stops at a time to give you a choice about something. If you get the right choice, it progresses. If you get the wrong choice, you go back to the beginning. So even if you've made a series of right choices and then you make a wrong choice, it's restarting you. I played about 20 minutes. I was done. I find it really interesting that somebody's trying to do this. I would like a little more granularity of not having such a binary choice. And maybe I just didn't get far enough in to find that.
And did you
Game Logic, you were gonna say?
did you use the term? You use the term roguelike to describe this?
No, I describe this as a full motion video Dragon's Lair, right? Like Dragon's Lair, if you don't hit the button at the right time, you die. And you got to spin that laser disc back up.
But it is a roguelite in terms of it sending you all the way back to the beginning, right? So in order to finish the game, you have to do a run.
Yes, you have to do a run. That's a good. Oh wow, that's a good point. Now you're the apologist for this game, right? Like this is a design choice rather than a limitation.
Yes, but don't ever say that I'm an apologist for roguelites, because I'm not. Like, I get it. Somebody decided that design style needed to exist because it appealed to people. It does not appeal to me. I see no need for it to exist. Now, we really, at some point, we're gonna maybe have the opportunity. I don't know that we'll ever have we need to break open this egg of roguelike versus roguelite in the way that those terms are used interchangeably today by multiple gamers and the media to describe games that are probably disingenuous to like their actual design nature, right? Because they're inherently different. I think I'm okay with roguelite. I can't remember the game that's on Game Pass right now. I just put it back in my queue. I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Star
Renegades.
Star Renegades.
Kind of, it's roguelike in terms of you have a run. You get a little bit of card battler in it as well because you're...
Yeah, I haven't gotten exposed to the card point. My thing is that there's save points. So, right, it's rogue... And I don't know if that's roguelike. I think that's roguelite. But maybe it's roguelike. I don't know. But the point is, within a level, there's a punishment factor where, for failing to do a run, you're sent back to the beginning of the level. But once you're on a level, you're on a level, and you never have to go all the way back to the beginning. That is something I can stomach in a certain design type. Like in a shooter, I cannot stand that. And there were things at the very beginning of like the checkpoint save era that would send you all the way back to the beginning. There's within a certain amount of elasticity within that design framework, there's a point where I can bear it, and then there's a threshold where I can't. So, but this sounds like it's an instance where, there's a punishment factor. A totality punishment factor.
All right, I made it through my list. Thanks, guys.
Hey, while we have been talking about Zelda-likes and 2D games and things with a tutorial impact in their gameplay, I've been playing something similar, and so I dipped my toes into Smelter. I'm playing on Xbox. I think the game is available on PC and maybe some other platforms as well. Smelter is an interesting bit of kit. This is a game that's been out since maybe late April, and has remained kind of in the... There's an algorithm I use to look at games above a certain threshold, and so it's been up on the chart so you can, in myself, formulate the thing for quite some time. it is a game that's steeped a little bit in biblical lore, so it doesn't come right out and say that this is Genesis, but it's the two characters are Adam and Eve at the beginning of the story, and you're playing Eve, and then she descends downward after Adam, eats of the forbidden fruit, which, as far as you can tell, looks like you're descending into hell. And then once in hell, you meet what seems, he calls himself an angel, but I guess he's more kind of, in modern terms from fictional works I've seen, looks to be more like a small demon. But he actually then sits on your head almost like a helmet, and then spreads out over your body as a piece of living armor. And the character, and you're playing Eve in this instance, and you're trying to find your way back to Adam. And so what ensues then is essentially a 2D platformer. Now there's a really weird catch in this where at midpoints in the game you move into a turn-based, maybe not turn-based, real-time strategy bit. And so you go off and do these missions that are in 2D platformer format. And I say 2D platformer, but I mean, there are combat elements to this. You can kick enemies. You gain different kind of melee weapons at this point. Maybe you get ranged weapons eventually. But you're able to wield elements of the armor as a long whip. You're able to do some simple melee attacks. Excuse me. And so there's this challenging kind of 2D platformer at the core of the gameplay. One of the things I will mention when we talk about roguelites and things that kind of creep their way into design elements are there are no difficulty levels to choose, which I wonder, as I'm starting my playthrough of that, whether that I'm going to hit a point in the game where I go, okay, no moss, I can't change the difficulty level, not interested. This is about a 13 to 15 hour game total to main the campaign. Apparently there are some extras or branches that you can go down. I haven't seen where exactly you could do that. Maybe there's like a element of mission selection as you're on kind of this, RTS screen. But the RTS elements are basically when you come back from a mission, then you're kind of in the small demons kind of environment where he's the comic relief in the story. There's a lot of kind of dystopian language that with, dark humor kind of stuff that's along the lines of a Disco Elysium kind of writing style. But for most of the game, you're playing the hero Eve, and this demon is on your head, and you're in this, living armor kind of thing. But then when you go to these RTS stages, the demon kind of hops off your head, and turns out he's actually like the king or emperor of this land. It seems like part of the dialogue that I've been exposed to is he seems like a fairly small scale, low powered demon, and what I would expect is a multitude of demons. But when he goes to this land, he's the king, and so he has minions, and he typical RTS tropes that are there. He goes out, and you can mine for different mats, and then use those mats to repair buildings and build new buildings and recruit troops, etc. So I think the only negative that I see is right now, and I'm gonna have more negatives because I'm not a 2D platformer kind of guy. But one of the negatives I have is there's another game that we talked about sometime within the last year or two where I had this problem where there's a lot of like self-made, made up kind of, I'm trying to think of the right term without creeping into profanity, but there's like a lot of like made up verbiage. Like there's a lot of jargon where they just apply labels to stuff that are like nonsensical in terms of our regular vocabulary patterns of languages that are derivatives of the Latin, right? So so that causes a thing where I'm trying to build a framework of situational awareness and an organizational scheme in my head, right? Because the way I approach RTS is I have this OODA loop in my head of like build, recruit, repair, improve, right? And then I do that all over again, right? And I can't get to that point now because the way they talk about things and the way they label things are just complete like nonsense. Like they don't follow any normal patterns for us. So, Yeah, go ahead.
deep enough to be able to do that? Is the RTS deep enough? Or does it feel kind of I mean, it seems like it's that ActRaiser model of kind of giving you a little bit of a different flavor in between the main gameplay. But I guess I'm curious on how what the depth of that actually is.
Yeah, and I need to get deeper into the game to determine not just what the depth is too, but the thing that should drive the depth, which is what is the point of the RTS stuff? Is that just to keep you from getting bored with the 2D platforming elements? Is that to give you a breather to get you out of, what historically can be a very frustrating gaming experience, right? Depending on the precision of the jumps that are needed, that kind of thing. The 2D platforming is enjoyable. There's tons of different manners of locomotion around the levels. I have to get further into it to see if it hits that point that I've talked about on other games where they give you too many tools. Like there's just so much buttonology even now, like in the first hour of the game, of how you can traverse the level and different types of attacks you can use. And I'm like, okay, I'm right at the cusp. Like if you give me 5 more things, right, I'm gonna be like, I'm done. Like I'm never gonna use that ability because I'm not gonna remember that buttonology, right? So and then all the mechanics of like, well, you can stand on this platform, and then that does a thing, and then you can whip the stone statue, and that gives you back life, and then sometimes you can get life other ways, and so there's a very deep, complex system of systems here at play. It's just a matter of like seeing more of it to determine if it's going to hit that overload point, and I'm going to be like, I'll just go play Destiny 2. But
that's your transition then?
Yeah, it can be.
I'm curious. I think I remember hearing about this game when it came out because people were talking about it in like the Mega Man ActRaiser type of way. But I feel like what I remember the narrative around this at the time was that it didn't do either well enough to really satisfy people. And so hearing you describe it, I'm suddenly thinking, oh, maybe I should put this back on my wish list looking for a sale because you're describing it, you're spending a lot of time on something that you seem to enjoy or at least have enough curiosity about that you want to continue to explore.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. So maybe we will transition and segue at that point to talk about our PickZ PlayZ report. I'm not going to read the whole entire because it's really lengthy. But basically, our PickZ PlayZ assignment, if you're not familiar with the format, what we do in this discussion of the gamer experiences, we kind of challenge each other every 2 weeks with a gaming assignment that normally has some relation to something going on around the industry or is similar to a recent event or perturbance in the force of games in the industry and developers and publishers, etc., that is somehow relevant to that newsworthy event. And so this was driven by is it Byron Beatty? I've never learned how to pronounce his last name, but the former GM of the Call of Duty franchise for Activision, who was poached by, I don't know if he was actually poached, I'm saying he was poached by Electronic Arts to come over and become the GM of the Battlefield franchise. And all of the speculation at that time was around how that change was going to start to drive Battlefield in a certain direction that is similar to the way Call of Duty does things now. And so it's the assignment was to kind of look for something in the historic past of similar nature. I think most prominently about Anthem when Casey Hudson came back, and how probably to a certain extent he probably got that project back on track from a philosophical standpoint and what they were trying to build. I don't know if he arrived in enough time to really change the course of Destiny that application was on. And so it was kind of to look back at gaming history and look for instances where creators came back onto a team. You kind of also think about Halo and the fact that the Halo, was it the 4 creative director was brought back for Halo Infinite. And there was a lot of supposition, as there always is, by the gaming community that was an indication that was a team in trouble, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, wanted to find something similar. Go back, find a game, find a franchise where somebody came on and there was a thought that by virtue of that person's arrival that there was a strong influence in the way the game headed. So the only 2 people who worked on this assignment, which sometimes happens, and that's okay. Were DBQ and myself. So DBQ, why don't you start things off, and then I'll loop back to how my assignment is relevant to my gameplay in Smelter.
Sounds good. So I had initially thought that I was going to go down kind of the Rod Ferguson type of train here, right? Think of Rod Ferguson as a closer coming out of the Gears development and Epic, moving over to Irrational to help close off uh, BioShock Infinite, and then being brought back on the Coalition to help uh, get Gears 4 out the door. And so, but those felt a little more high profile. Like so I wanted to dig around a little bit more, and I've been thinking about Mercury Steam. So Mercury Steam they're working with Nintendo on the new Metroid Dread, but their kind of big first kind of burst onto the scene was Castlevania Lords of Shadow, which brought in Kojima at one point to help with that development. And then in Lords of Shadow 2, Kojima wasn't there. And the kind of narrative around that game was that it was a lot of cooks in the kitchen, a lot of development, not necessarily development kind of limbo, but there were stories out there kind of digging back through some of the archives on, the internet archives and forums around Lords of Shadow 2, developers who came out after the game to talk about it. There were mechanics in the game, or there were systems in the game that they didn't know about, that there was a lot of kind of segmented teams, and the mishmash of gameplay and the lack of cohesive experience really kind of showed in that. And at the same time that Mercury Steam was coming out with Lords of Shadow 2, they had another studio, or they had another group within that studio work on Mirror Fate, so the 3DS game, in that same kind of world, but as a 2D one. So I looked at Mirror Fate as a Konami 2D one without a whole lot of support from external help on the 3DS, and compared that to Mercury Steam's Metroid 2, where they were working with Nintendo to do the remake on Metroid 2, and kind of looking at it's hard to tell, right? It's hard to tell. I shouldn't say right, but for me, I'm having a hard time telling how much is external studio assistance and working with Nintendo as the platform holder and their ability to know their hardware, or how much of their own ability to understand the hardware after kind of struggling on another game, right? Like, hard to tell from a development piece. And it's probably a little bit of both, right? Like, they learned the hard lessons as they learned the engine, but also having somebody come in from Nintendo that can help them with that makes the game a whole lot more polished, a whole lot more fluid, brighter, more colorful. It really stands out on the system, even though they're only a few years apart. So there's my book report.
Very cool. So, Tao, we were talking a couple weeks ago. Have you played any of the Metroid games?
No, I never. I tried the original back in the day, and I couldn't get into it. Thought I would try Prime at some point, but I just never got a chance. I just never got around to it. So maybe if they ever do like a remaster or re-release, I might try the Prime games.
It's Nintendo. They're guaranteed to do a remaster or a re-release.
Well, maybe.
They charge you full price for it.
You would have figured they would have done it by now, but yeah, they'll probably just wait until maybe right before the 4 comes out, the year before or something.
Right, and it'll be available for a limited period of time.
Yeah.
So I use this time to play Call of Duty Black Ops, and as we all know, there's been a bit of a journey that things that I've been trying to figure out, and it was interesting because during the course of this assignment, I hit the point definitively, without question. In the past, I've come up to these points of wondering, right? Would I be okay if I only played X? Would I be fine if this became my thing? Like, I hit a point during this pipeline where I said, yep, this is it. I'm okay. I'm done. I'm just going to play Call of Duty, and that's going to become my thing. And
long
like
did that last? Because I've been on this podcast with you for almost 5 years at this point, and yeah, that's not the gamer I've experienced.
well, look, I've looked around. Tao is a good example, right? He has a core stable of games that are his focus. Swiss went through his period of time where Destiny 2 was his thing. I look at Gray, our mentor and predecessor, who now, went through his time where he played, really just Elite Dangerous. And now it's kind of like Tao kind of, I think, from what I see, what I observe, has kind of this core stable of games that are kind of all in this one genre, right, which is the space sim genre. And there's elements of that are pros, right, that I'm I say the term jokingly, but essentially jealous of, right? And I look at, you guys and gamers who are able to deep dive and really become experts, right, in at least their knowledge of a game and awareness of what the game has to offer, right? DBQ and I, we play so many games that I'm like, I never know, right? I love playing Destiny 2, but I'm like, I don't know what this stuff is supposed to be, and I'm not going to take the time to figure it out because I have other stuff to go play, right? Or, but with Call of Duty, I was really settling down to, I was aware of what the prestige levels were. I was aware of the different weapons and attachments and the different impacts and the tactics, and I was aware of how the rankings were structured and what the progression path was. And there was a point over this 2-week time frame where I became hyper aware of the news cycle specific to that game and what was going on and what was coming down the pike. And I have the companion app on my phone now, and I was in the awareness level of, oh, okay, stats in game and stats in the companion app are different, right? And that causes a bit of a perturbance and a thing when you don't understand that. And got to a point where two things. My hardware upgrade cycle was starting to become tightly coupled and wrapped around, right, what was most beneficial to my gameplay in Call of Duty, and to where my cycle of hunting down and finding tactics to help my gameplay was becoming a thing. I was at a point where I was playing it, I was streaming it, I was going to bed, and the last thing I did when I went to bed was pull up all my stats in recent matches on the companion app, because one of the things I can't stand in the game is that I'm like, look, I see what my ED is total, I see what my career is total. What I really want to know is, how did I perform over the 20 matches that I played tonight? Right now, that's what I want to know. And that was available in the companion app, so that was the last thing I would do before I went to bed. So,
do they still have the heat signature maps?
They do.
Oh, do they? Okay,
yeah.
I know that was the big thing that they did a few years ago.
Yeah, I don't entirely understand.
It's kind of neat.
And I don't understand entirely how to interpret them. I don't know if those are specific to my gameplay on those maps, or if they're... Because it says...
Yeah, it should be your gameplay.
Well, it says...
As far as I remember.
It says community, and there's 2 drop-down lists at the top of the companion app. One says community, and then another one says, what the heat map is showing, but the community is grayed out, and you can't change it. So I was like, this can't be what is happening to everybody. So that's helpful that I know that it's it's specific to me, because that could make a difference in my gameplay, right, on those specific maps.
That's how it was originally when they first brought it out. So maybe they changed it. I don't know, but you would figure to be able to flip between, both.
Yeah, what everybody else is doing and what you're doing to see that comparison. One of the things that I became concerned with kind of before I did the rubber band is, and one of the frustrating things I can't figure out is my stats in free for all are twice the performance level of my stats in all of the other objective-based team-oriented games. My ED is twice as high. My win rate is significantly higher. I popped off, so generally I was getting, in most recent history, I was getting 14 to 17 matches a night. I popped off the other night with, and I do a lot of quick play, so I have 10 different match types in my quick play rotation, so I get whatever the computer algorithm decides. I get up on the Russian roulette reel. So this one night I got 4 free-for-all matches out of 14. I won 3 of those matches. 1. Not placed top 3. 1. And I'm like, why do I perform so astronomically better in free-for-all than I do in TDM or domination or control? And I heavily wonder if one of the things is, you know, and this goes back to what you were mentioning, Tao, about like, hey, we should all play, you know, I have to keep looking back to the name because I don't even
Knockout City.
Knockout City. We should all play that. And I wonder, is it because I spent so much time, because on the front end of Cold War, I did nothing but play free-for-all. None of the games were even, none of the other match types were even in my rotation. I wonder, is it because I just got so accustomed to like playing solo, and then on top of that, then when I go into team matches, I'm not in game chat, so I don't coordinate with anyone. So even if with like I see these teams who run around with like they're always in pairs, you know, and I'm like, okay, those guys are on comms. Like those guys aren't just randos playing together.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that's a negative impact in my performance in the team-based modes. So at any rate, this was the path I was headed down. I've got a 240 hertz monitor sitting over there, right? Because I was trying to figure out like what was the best. Because I've agonized for days about getting a new PC, and I keep heading there and then turning away because I can't justify plunking down for I can rationalize, I can't justify plunking down for a, because right now you can't buy a 3000 series GPU, you have to buy just a whole PC. And I could, but I can't say that I've gotten all of my ROI out of the cards I have in this space now. So I got this monitor instead, you know, because that was my Call of Duty was becoming my driver. And so my whole experience with that is, I loved it. Really loved it. As a gamer, I can sit in that space and I would be thoroughly satisfied, right? To have like the small number of games that I really focus on, because that focus is what lends itself to a lot of enjoyment, right? And entertainment ROI, as I think of it. I didn't like the impact. I hate to use the term because I contend that most streamers aren't, but right, a lot of people like. I didn't like its impact on me as a content creator, and so what I didn't like was going to my Twitch page and only seeing the one game panel there, or going to my YouTube channel and seeing the one game, because I'm so used to like I have these subtitles that go along with my Let's Play videos based on the genre of game, right? So like the Firearms Tales is my mini-series of games where I'm playing shooters, and the Charade Scenarios is my mini-series of games where I'm playing RPGs, and the Diversion Legends is like my series of games where I'm playing sports games, right? So there are all these little titles that I spent time like figuring out and coming up with, and like you go to my YouTube page and it's like nothing but the Firearms Tales, right? So I just, as a content creator, I dislike that, because part of the whole point of some of this effort, you know, in shooting videos was to have this catalog of things where I go back and I look back at like my experiences and my gameplay, like doing a thing. And I'm like, okay, so this is all very monotone, you know, and again, highly enjoyable as a gamer, but there's a piece of like what we do here, like on the podcast and the other stuff I do, like blogging and participating in social media, where there was a certain element, a certain dynamic that I wasn't getting to, that I was being cut off from, and I couldn't see or figure out, like in as much time as I was dumping into Call of Duty, I was not hitting a point where I was interested in jumping into the dialogue about Call of Duty on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, or engaging with a lot of the other players in the community in Call of Duty. Now, the experience is not over totally, because like I've been getting pinged about a LFG group that I'm, you know, looking at jumping in to surface whether or not I need to be in these team-based matches, and if that will help improve my stats. Now, over this time, so I was playing a match one night, another streamer showed up, I could tell because they had TTV in their clan tag, and I went over and I finished my session, then I went over there and I played with them because they were playing with viewers, and I played with her and some other team members. And I did, my performance in team games like jumped, and it wasn't because they were carrying me, because in a lot of those matches I was the top of the leaderboard on the team, but it was because I was working with a team and we were communicating, and I wasn't just like coming around a corner and it was 3v1, right, with me against the opposing team, and I'm like, well, crap, I can't do this here, right? And I had people saying and telling me, hey, there's a person up there, oh, they're over there, whatever. So I'm going to pull that thread a little bit. But a lot of that point, DBQ, to get back to your question, was why was I ready for a palate cleanser and I was more I found something like Smelter more approachable was because I had that time looking at a game flashing at 60 to 120 frames per second, right, on super aggro steroids, right, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm okay with this 2D game. Interestingly enough, we'll talk about it another, but I also finally figured out how to get my PS5 into performance mode and connected to a 144 hertz monitor, did see it pop over to 120 frames per second. So, not able to do that at 4K on a TV because I don't have an HDMI 2.1 TV, but I can see that on a 1080p monitor, with the appropriate refresh rate. And it was an improved experience. So my whole point is I think what I'm toying with now is kind of chunking that track out to where there's a Call of Duty track, and then there's my Variety Gamer track, and I'm running those a little more in parallel versus I've been struggling the last few years between streaming driving my gaming and then trying to have gaming drive my streaming and never really settling down because there are things that I play that I don't want to stream and things that I stream that I don't want to drive my schedule, and trying to couple those together and do them concurrently, with some load balancing during the week. So long tail, but that's kind of what, by virtue of doing this assignment, and getting back to the assignment itself, the whole reason I played this was because, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, this was the whole shortened dev cycle for Treyarch being brought in because it seemed like Sledgehammer and Raven couldn't get along, and obviously definitely had large sway in what the result of that year's Call of Duty was, because it would have been an entirely different game had it been Sledgehammer's game. It would probably be the World War II game that we're getting this year instead of the Black Ops game that was the follow-up to Black Ops 3.
I appreciate the narrative of that, like kind of walking through your process and that kind of internal struggle of, yeah, you enjoyed the singularity aspect of playing it, but the breadth of what you were getting is not what you were looking to get out of how you were defining your experience as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Hey, Tao, I'm going to let you carry us out with your discussion of Mario Odyssey and Trials Rising. I'm curious to hear this because these are both games that have been in my rotation in the past. I would say Trials Rising was the one I was more positive about, although Mario Odyssey is a great game, but want to kind of hear what your experiences were over the last couple of weeks with those.
Yeah, so I'll start with Trials first. I just wanted to, I had been playing Rocket League and some of Descenders too, which I've mentioned in the past. And I was like, I want some a little bit different, some kind of sporty-ish game, if you want to call Trials rather sporty-ish, but you're on dirt bikes. But I hadn't played it for a while too, and I just want to kind of jump back in it. And I finally realized you can actually sort your map there when you're playing it to, like, if you have like no medals on a certain race, or you just bronze medals, or you want to do just like the big multi races, like the stadium races. So I was kind of just going through and just going through the races where I hadn't had any kind of medal yet, which there was only like a couple of like easy ones, and then like the rest were like medium and hard and like extra hard. So I was kind of bouncing back between like the medium and the hards more or less for the past week, and just trying to get back into the game. It's easy to pick up and kind of play, but once you get into those medium and harder modes, it's you really gotta learn how to lean and brake and do all that kind of stuff. So I've been trying to get back into that, and for the most part I've been doing pretty good. Medium tracks aren't too bad, but the hard ones they start to get more vertical, where you have to go almost like a straight up, but it's still a slight incline, but you're more or less just kind of going straight up. So you really have to learn how to control the bike. Otherwise, you're just you're flipping off and going too far, jumping into like an exploding barrel or something like that. So, but yeah, just getting back into that. It's a fun game. I've always liked the Trials games. It's kind of like Minecraft for me, where I'll play it for like a month or two or so, and then they kind of drop off of it, come back at, later in the year. So it kind of that ebb and flow of gaming there. And then Mario Odyssey, once again, like every once in a while, I've said this in the past, like I have to go back through I shouldn't say I have to go back, but I like to go back through my back catalog and just kind of play some of the single player stuff that I haven't finished yet. So Mario was up on, and I don't know if I mentioned this on the show at all, but I had like wiped my Switch clean of like all my basically single player games, and I was just kind of loading up like one or two and just kind of playing through those. So that's what I've been doing. And Mario came up this time around, so I've been going back through that. And I love that game. It's I've always liked the Mario games, and they have like a special place in my heart, if I want to say that phrase. I always have it kind of just makes me feel like a kid again, just playing those games, running around. And I like the game. I like the 3D aspect, and I really like the 2D aspects when you kind of go into those 2D worlds, and you can usually pretty short, but it's just kind of at least as far as I've seen. But it's just kind of a fun thing to do, and the one I was doing where it was the 3D world, but there's still or the 2D world, and there's like 3D elements like that are kind of like going over you and going across the screen too, and you think, oh god, it's gonna hit me, but it just kind of keeps going across the screen because you're in this 2D plane now, so that that stuff can't touch you. So it's just kind of a cool thing that I'm sure that's been in games before, but I haven't seen anything like that myself. So it's just I'm enjoying the game, and I think I have about 2 more levels that I have to do before I actually finish the game. So I'll probably just keep going and finish this one off because I always seem to always stop right when I'm at the end of a game. But this one, they kind of show you on the map. You have that world map, and there's like one jump, and then I hit Bowser's ship. So I'm assuming that's the last level. I don't know how many like sub levels are in there, but hopefully I'll finish that one within probably a month or so, if not a couple weeks, depending on how much time I get to play. So having fun with those 2 games.
So both of those games can get grindy. And as you mentioned, right, that's kind of the thing with Trials, right? There's a point where you're playing it, you love it, you love it, you love it, and then you get to that point where like, and then sometimes it's not even the most difficult thing. It's just a thing that for whatever reason, whatever nit is the most difficult thing for you that night, right?
Yeah.
Could be a thing that you put the game away, come back to it, and you clear it in one try next day, right? But for whatever reason that night, like it's 6, 10, 12 times that you try the thing and it's just not working. And the ones that really are frustrating are the ones where you're like within seconds of getting it, right? And just multiple times you're like, I missed it by 1 second. But again, which do you personally feel like is the more enjoyable grind? The grind for you, the one that you could stomach more, the Mario Odyssey grind or the Trials grind?
Probably Trials, because I can. But if I do get stuck on one race, I can always just, okay, so hey, I can't do this right now. I'm going to go to a different race and switch it up. Mario is more all right, I got to find this this many this so many moons, and then I can get past to the next level. And sometimes that gets a little tedious. I mean, the worlds are pretty good of hiding them, and you got to do different stuff. But sometimes that can get a little tedious just because you're kind of stuck in that same world, even though it's fairly large. But you're still kind of stuck in the same area. But like I said, though, Trials, you can just, if I get stuck, I just go to a different race or jump online and download a couple of player made races and do something like that and then go back to it. And with Trials, I don't know, it's just that kind of that competitive edge too, because you always have those ghost riders that are kind of on the screen too. At least most of the time, I think everybody sees those, even if it's not friends. It's like the developer ghosts that are going through the racetrack. So you always kind of want to beat them. And I have this, at least with the easy and mediums, I always have to beat those races without falling. I just have to. Like, there's something within me that especially on the easy ones, because those are they're easy. You're like, oh, I can do this, and then you like you said, you get stuck on something and you could do it like 20 times before you actually do it. So I do a lot of restarts of the whole level because I want to beat that whole level without crashing or faulting or whatever they call it in there. I can't remember what the term was.
So you mentioned earlier your progress in one game and said you weren't trying to brag. I am. But so after just looping back to my Call of Duty monologue, after 1 week of season 4 being in progress, I am at a prestige level. I was just looking at it.
It's easy on the mobile app now.
Yeah, Prestige level 41 and have cleared Battle Pass tier 31. So that's after 1 week of play. So
yeah, I found the Call of Duty one to be pretty hard to get through. At least for me, at least the Battle Pass. I don't know. So you must have been really playing the heck out of that game.
Yeah, I've been playing like an hour, one to two hours every day. So I mean, you know.
Do you get the Battle Pass or the Battle Pass? Excuse me.
It's a mix depending. So one thing is and there's some crossplay things that we need to talk about at some point with Call of Duty. Like, yes, there's crossplay, but like, why the stink are my keybinds different on when I do keyboard and mouse on PlayStation 5 than they are all over on PC? And then this weird thing of like the keybinds are one thing where you've been playing on PlayStation 5, but you boot the game on PC one time, didn't even play it, just booted it up because I wanted to look at the keybinds, and then I go back to my PlayStation 5 and my keybinds are different again, and I'm like, what the? So, but one of the other interesting nits in crossplay that's not crossplay is, and we've mentioned this before, crossplay, cross progression, but CP points are individual per platform. So I will sometimes, so I will sometimes go to a platform for the start of a season, and I will have enough COD points there to just get the season pass, which I did this time because I started season 4 on Xbox. But if I had started on PC or PlayStation 5, I might not have had those points, and I might have just had to pay the $10 or whatever it is. So
yeah.
All right,
that's what.
I'm sorry.
Real quick, that's what Knockout City does too. It saves it. But like I was playing on when I play on my Xbox, I have a certain control scheme, and then when I jump back in the Switch, it keeps that, and then it screws me up. I'm like, oh crap, because I have the way I have the controller set up. I have the different you can go in there and do different configurations for the Xbox. Obviously, I have it inverted. I have it inverted on the Xbox settings. But on the game settings, it's normal because the Xbox settings overrides that. But then when I go to Switch, that screws me up because then I have to change it back to inverted, and I got to keep changing it when I flip back and forth. That's kind of annoying. So
no, but that brings up a good point. Last thing I'll mention about Smelter. So I have to look at the dev, but I'm guessing that the dev is a Japanese dev studio because the default controller configuration has B as the action button. Talk about something that'll mess up your.
There was some Mega Man musician. I mean, some of the composers for Mega Man did some music on it as well, so it makes sense.
Yeah. So you talk about something that will mess up your muscle memory, right? Is you're on Xbox with the Nintendo Switch control scheme, which I think in game it works fine. It's just when you're in the menus that it's definitely because you hit B to do the line skip that you mentioned, DBQ, and on the front end there's a ton of tutorials and text that you have to tab through to get into the start of the game. All right, well, great episode. Super appreciate the conversation. It was one that I needed right after work has been as busy as it has been this week, so I do appreciate it. We will be back next week, and quite honestly, I know that we had it in the agenda, but when I looked at the schedule, I don't think I've made the schedule for the month of July, so.
Next week is Tao's at the helm, and myself and Swiss are on the schedule.
Okay, so that should be what it is, and then what's going on the rest of the month of July we'll figure out. But I think that's about it for the show for tonight. So on behalf of the E2KG Podcasting Network and DBQ and Towmaster, once again, I've been Game Logic on Twitch. Thanks so much for joining us for tonight. We'll see you guys back here next week to deep dive into the news cycle. Did anybody score an Xbox Series? I know you already have one, but anybody score on the Best Buy restock today? Okay, yeah. Frustrating experience. If you didn't do it, don't feel bad, because the experience was you'd put the thing in your cart, and then if that inventory item had actually been nabbed and you weren't actually getting one, instead of just telling you hadn't get it, for some reason it was glitching and popping you to you need to log back in, and whenever you tried to log back in, would tell you that your password was incorrect. So I changed my password like 20-something times, thinking that I would get past the bug, and it never. And I'm like, this is dumb. Like, this is just not the way to fail out of a web-based store. It's sickening. So keep playing your keep playing your Xbox One, guys. All right.
Did you mention the PickZ PlayZ too for next time?
Oh, no, sorry. So real quick, PickZ PlayZ. Here's the assignment. And I quote, after all the speculation, E3 is over and done. Trailers and announcements are out in the wild. What game developer or franchise announcement is still occupying your thought? Explore a game in that franchise or by that developer. So back through E3, think about what most excited you, what you're still thinking about. Play something that keeps those fires stoked. I'm guessing a lot of people are going to be playing Halo. I'm planning on playing some Halo, the Master Chief Collection, Halo 2. So, Tao DBQ, do you guys have any notion of what you might be getting into?
Yeah, I'm gonna play Steep to go along
Yeah.
with the Riders Republic to kind of go along with that. So I'm really excited about that game. So
Cool.
I'll jump into. I played a little bit of Steep, but I haven't mentioned it just because I haven't really. I think I did like one or two runs, but I want to get more into it.
Yeah, DBQ.
I probably am gonna spend the time in Horizon 4, Forza Horizon 4, since 5 looks exciting. But I also think one of the games that I'm really excited about is from the developer Stray Bombay, which is the Anacrusis game. So this is former Valve and Riot developers. So maybe I'll go back to the granddaddy of the 4-player co-op and fire up a little Left 4 Dead 2 and see how that plays up.
Well, definitely give me a shout if you go back to that, because I have that available, and I think I have that available. I would love to spend some time playing that, because I'm super excited about all the four-player or 3-player co-op games coming out this fall and into next year. So thanks again, everybody, for stopping by. We will talk to you later. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Play the games that you like. Come here to talk about the games that you love. Until next time, good night, good gaming, good luck. I think I did that backwards, but whatever. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.